Another week inside UNH women's ice hockey. Thanks for being with us yet again. Nate Bridges, Brian McCloskey, and Coach, all of a sudden, to start the 2012 calendar year, 3-1. Great playing against BU. That Northeastern team this past weekend was just absolutely dominant. We'll talk about all those things here coming up. But first and foremost, as you and I were just talking about off camera, nice to have a little bit more stability with the kids back on campus. Granted, your student athletes never really left except for the holiday, but nice just to have some hustle and bustle, if you will, back here on campus.
Yeah, no, it's this week is, you can feel the energy as soon as you came to school this week. Kids returning and back in session. So I think the break, as I said earlier, it's a bit long. I think it's a nice break from a coaching, teaching standpoint. I think the kids enjoy the break, but like any break, by mid-January, I think they're ready to get back in and back into a routine.
Let's talk a little bit about that BU win. You came off the 2 straight wins against UConn here at the Whittemore Center. BU comes to town on a Thursday night game. You beat BU 4-2. You and I chatted all of the first semester about getting that first Hockey East win. Do you think it was just a matter of getting that first win to get your team going, kind of, loosen up their hands on the stick a little bit, and maybe they're just playing a little bit more freer out there, if you will?
Yeah, probably, Nate. There's probably something to, the Connecticut series. We finally, obviously, got off the schneid, and but on the flip side, I'm not sure that our kids were, in the first half necessarily getting more uptight for the Hockey East games versus the ECAC as it was just poor execution or learning on the job or mistakes. And yeah, I mean, there's no question that after coming out of break, we're playing a little bit better hockey for sure. And it's a sprint now because you're into the stretch run. But the BU game was a good game for us. BU's had some injuries, and and we got a good effort as we did against UConn in net, up front and on the blue line. So special teams were good that day. So I mean, you do those things well, you're going to probably have success more often than not.
And then you travel down to Matthews and that snowstorm on Saturday, and Northeastern playing at home is just, they looked like a different team out there compared to when we've seen them here at the Whittemore Center over the years. They were high-flying all over the place. You've mentioned BUC as one of your better skating teams in the conference. When Northeastern is clicking, do you think they're right up there with BC?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, BC has won that series, I guess, so to date. They're 2 wins and 1 tie in their 3 meetings, but I think they face each other in the bean pot, and they're both tied atop the standings. You're splitting hairs, and they're not carbon copies, but they're similar. Both teams can transition very well, and Northeastern played. I think when I first left the game, I was like, oh my God. I felt like we had been run right out of the rink, and certainly the scoreboard would indicate that. Then when I went back and watched it, it was one of those funny games where it's minutes and we're hanging around and we're chipping pucks and doing things we have to do. But as the mistakes started to unfold and they started to really seize upon them, it was almost a combination of they were playing with a lot of jump, a lot of excitement at home. They hadn't played a game Thursday or Friday, and again, we're playing a small roster, and I'm not saying it was fatigue that you lose 8-0. Certainly, that would be a bad excuse. But it was a combination of all those things, and I think we just obviously wound up kind of the last half of the first period losing the game in that 8-10 minute stretch, and then from there it was just sort of grind it out. And when you fell behind 4-0, we knew it was going to be very difficult to come back. But I said in my blog this week, I think Northeastern played like a national tournament team.
Talk a little bit. You mentioned your D line, your special teams. Christine Horn made that jump from forward back to D earlier this season. Just for the folks out there who don't get a chance to watch you practice or play on a regular basis and really aren't too familiar with the players up and down your roster, the folks that might watch maybe 1 or 2 games a year, how do you make that decision? We saw it a few years ago with Courtney Bouchard. How do you make that decision on who goes back onto the blue line in a situation like that? Because Caroline Broderick was a D at the beginning of the year. We've kind of shuffled some things around. How does that work from a coach's mentality?
I think really it's hard to I guess it's hard to generalize what the one thing you're looking for, but there's some, in essence, you're kind of looking at people, when you're looking at forwards that you might convert, Nate, I think D that you convert to forward are often, more often than not, it's because they're struggling with the defensive part of the game. And they're either not ready or physically, mentally, or combination thereof, and so they're not making good enough decisions. When you're moving a forward back, I think the first thing you're looking for is someone who has some puck skill and vision, because they're a little bit like a quarterback dropping back in the pocket. And, if they're putting the ball in the wrong places, up for grabs and turning it over a lot, your team's going to be on their heels. So, that's one thing that Burchard and Horn both had. So, in essence, what you're looking for is somebody who has some of those quarterbacking attributes, ability to look, head up, vision, anticipate. And sometimes kids have just played forward because that's where the coaches, played them. And I think Horn is a good example. Could Christine go back up front next year for us? Sure. But after watching her this second half, I'm not sure she would be as if even any more productive than she's been for us on the blue line, because she's still getting points, still contributing in huge ways. And we'll see. We'll take it as it comes next year. But I have a good feeling. I have a strong feeling, I guess, or inclination that we'll probably wind up keeping her there. I think that's where she's meant to be.
Do you give these skaters like Courtney Bouchard, now granted she had some national team experience, and Christine Horn, do you give them a little bit more freedom up and down the ice during a game? Because I've noticed later in the games they might take a little bit more of the load on their shoulders. It's not necessarily throughout the entire 60 minutes, but do you give them a little bit more freedom out there?
Well, I think it's not so much that I give it to them, they take it. Yeah, they get the confidence and they start playing. And if they were coming to the bench and I was saying never do that, then maybe they'd shut it down. But I'm not, because as I see them gain confidence, making better decisions, occasionally Christine and Courtney both had similar a similar couple bad habits that occasionally they overhandle or they try to do too much, and you just gentle reminder. But I don't think you want to take, you certainly don't want to take the spunk out of them and their ability to make something happen. And, Christine, in the last 3 wins prior to the NU game, she really did some key things that, whether it resulted directly in a goal or indirectly, but she's been a big part of our success this second half.
Speaking of the last few games, you have a few players that are on fire right now. Jenna LaSalle against BU here at the Whittemore Center. Christina Lavoie, I think she has 10 points in her last 7 games, something like that. Emma Clark, we had her here on camera earlier this season. 5 goals so far in the season. Maybe the 5 goals doesn't surprise you, but 3 of those 5 game winners. That's a little bit of senior leadership that you've been lacking so far during the year, especially with so few seniors on the roster. You only got 2 of them.
True, yeah, and Lindsay stepped up nicely for us here in the second half, and now Emma's played pretty well all year, and I'm very happy for her. And she scored some big goals, and she's playing really well. Emma Clark is playing very good hockey for us. I think she's another one who has a lot of confidence as a senior and knows what we were trying to do, and she's very much a team player. And then, as you noted, Jenna LaSalle, freshman, has she's just kind of broken out after being a little snake bit in the first half, and Christine's Horn and Lavoie both are racking up pretty nice point totals too. But we're getting, at least because we don't have a huge roster, at least I could say, it's getting spread somewhat. Carolyn Broderick, I'm sorry, you mentioned, she's been playing very well for us up front. I've been really impressed.
Cashman with a power play goal last week.
With a power play goal, and even I feel badly, Ariel O'Neill has probably been the most snake bit player this season. She'll probably break out next year for 20, but she's still doing good things, great things. Some of them not showing up on the scoreboard, some of them assists. I'm pretty happy across the board with the efforts we're getting with these kids, and not everybody's scoring prolifically, but I think we're putting enough offense on the board, not at NU, though in the second half, and I'm seeing signs that we can continue to do it, that if we play well on our own end, we'll be in the game. Obviously down at NU you give up, there aren't many teams that are going to score 4 against shelling even on a good night. So we have to do a better job of, and that's been, we have to do a better job of road games. We've seemed to have gotten more comfortable at home of late, and second nights have been all year have been a challenge for us.
Last question. It touches on Vermont this weekend. Home and home series. You start here at the Whittemore Center. You travel up to the Gutterson Fieldhouse. The Wildcats fell to Vermont earlier this year, back in November. I think it was a 4-1 game that particular week. Your teams over the years have been so used to fighting for that 1 or 2 spot in the conference, really fighting for the home ice. Now this year, all of a sudden, the last few weeks of the year, you do play UConn here coming up in a few weeks as well. This is about as big of a weekend as you have had so far this season.
Yeah, they are, and we were sort of in a similar place last year with Maine and Vermont, and now it's Connecticut and Vermont. And you know, with our young team, I mean, but we can't get ahead of ourselves, because you can't say, you know, a win Saturday and a loss Sunday, you're dead even. Obviously, a sweep either way would be either very comforting or could be a disaster, and yet we still have a couple games with Maine and Providence, and Connecticut and Vermont have their 4 games left with other non-league or other league opponents other than ourselves. So it's, you know, I think the good thing is we control our own fate, and you know, what we have to do is come out, put in a better effort. I watched the game back. It was in November, I think the 8th or something, first week of November, that we played them here, and they deserved the win. They came out, jumped up 2-0 in the first, and we never really got in the game. So and we know they have an excellent goaltender. So I talked to Tim this week, and they've had their share of injuries too. So it's that time of year where, you know, everybody's just got to bring it, and it should be an exciting series. I expect it to be close and hard fought.
Vermont this weekend, Whittemore Center Saturday, up at Vermont on Sunday. UNHWomen'sHockey.com. We'll see you next week with the head coach, Brian McCloskey.